while.
Okay. 3 weeks or maybe 4 weeks. 3 or 4 weeks.
It's probably, I think, 4 weeks now.
It was the last class, 23rd of May.
23rd of May.
Yes.
May, now June, almost a month.
Yes.
Alright.
It's taken all that month to get the grass cutter. We've been busy.
Yes, 23rd of May.
Okay. So this is 16th of May, 23rd of May. Now, so, do you have any things that you want to ask on the previous topic of Vipassana?
Only practice.
Okay.
Only practice.
So we discussed on the characteristics, right?
The temperaments and
No.
Not
No, we were discussing about the characteristics, function, manifestation, proximity, cause, right? Am I right? What was the 23rd one?
Sanya, Panya, Vijnana.
Sanya, Panya, Vijnana.
And then
And story about swimology.
Swimology, so Satamaya,
Sutamaya,
Shintamaya,
Chittamaya.
Pavanaya, Yana. He told us a story about swimology.
Okay.
So when we
It's
start,
not in
we
my
use our
note.
we see signs, minds, pictures, sounds that we must be mindful of tricks. Conditioned mind will tell us we're enlightened, but we need to know the mind. Observing the observer.
So probably those things came up because of I forgot her name.
Gloria.
Gloria asked, and then we
We
went on with that one.
We got diverted.
Yeah, well, it wasn't. It was related, but it's not in my note.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So, but anyway, I believe you understood the Sanya, Vijnana, and Panya, and Sutamaya Panya.
I don't think so. No.
So we started last class with Sanya, Panya, and Vijnana. So memory, know the
Knowing.
object,
Yeah.
conventional, and Panya, knowing the reality, impermanence, suffering, non-existence, and then true reality, the ultimate truth.
Okay.
And then Panya also has 3 ways to know the truth. Bhavana Maya,
Chintamaya first. Sutamaya first.
Sitamaya first.
Sutamaya, and then Chintamaya, and then
1, 2,
Bhavana
3.
Maya.
okay.
Okay. And then after that,
After that, you told us the story about swimology, Maya, illusion, and probably this is where we've been diverted because of Gloria. And then you mentioned the Buddha's statement about the body, Vacha Kutim
Idam.
Sariram. Yeah.
And that's where we ended, I
And
think.
then we spoke about avidya and vijja. Avidya creates reaction and develops attachment and formation, and vijja, wisdom, produces action that doesn't have a negative effect and then leads towards non-attachment.
Okay.
And that's we finished.
Right. So in my note, it's talking about the characteristics, function, and manifestation and proximity cause. Alright.
No,
Now I
we
will
didn't-
write it.
We didn't.
Didn't
Okay.
have time.
Okay. So that means all the last session was out of my note.
Okay.
Okay.
That's like a sideshow.
No notes in my.
It's difficult when a person
Hmm.
who didn't follow the previous course
Mm-hmm.
asks question
And then we have to follow all
Yeah.
That's alright.
from the beginning.
That's alright. Not
Yeah. Okay. Right. But we did touch about we, right? What does it mean? We. Yeah. We.
Yes.
Vipassana.
previous.
So, what does it mean? We. We means.
How we see distinctively, differently, clearly, vividly.
Passana means seeing.
Seeing, viewing, observing.
Or experiencing.
distinctively different, clearly, vividly, observing, seeing, viewing.
Yeah. Okay. So that's another form is intellectual training. Yeah. Intellectually training.
V.
No, all.
Okay.
That means Vipassana. Now, Vipassana has got the characteristics. It is called Lakkhana. Lakkhana. That is so. This is seeing the individual essence of states. Essence of the state. And here individual, we have to understand the individual here. So that means each thing, each moment. Okay? Each thing, each moment. And here seeing also sometimes translated as a penetrating. Penetrating or penetration. So that's the characteristics of a Vipassana. Yeah? That seeing each individual's essence in that state.
Each individual's.
Not me, in a tiny particles. Okay, so the essence of the state here is talking about 3 characteristics. So that is anicca, dukkha, and anatta. So each things we experience, we see it in that form, anicca, dukkha, anatta. Anatta. So I mean, impermanence, suffering, and non-self.
So seeing these 3 characteristics in everything.
Everything. That's why individual essence of the state. Yeah. So and that's why in the practice, seeing things as they truly are. So that is the word very famously used. Seeing things as they truly are. So here the word as they truly are simply means everything must change. Yeah? It's a changing. Even our perception, even our knowing changes. So that's the individual is not about a person, even the person in a gross level, but it's about the very subtlety, very subtle level of when we practice, we can experience those things. And then functioning, it is called kitcha. And that's the evolution of darkness. Evolution, the darkness of delusion. Evolution, the darkness of delusion. Okay? And this is understandable. The practice is simply to get the vijja, so no darkness. Yeah? And number 3 is manifestation. And that is the phala. And that non-delusion. Non-delusion. Now here non-delusion is another one that is very important in a practice. And then the proximate cause. Proximate cause is concentration or samadhi. Okay, so this is the, in a way, a basic form of Vipassana to understand. Okay? Okay, here. Now. So, the first one is easy to understand. The characteristics of the Vipassana is the seeing the individual essence of the state. And then I will go through the anicca, dukkha, anatta again in detail. Why? And then why we cannot see anicca, why we cannot see dukkha, and why we cannot see anatta, and why we cannot understand that one. And because of that covering and not able to understand, why we going back to avijja and then going through the dependent origination, the creation and creation, that one. And here function, the evolution of the darkness of a delusion. And now here the delusion again, they correlate with the anicca, dukkha, anatta, because of not knowing that we go into the avijja, and then that's how we delusion. We go into that not knowing and ignorant. We become ignorance of the reality that things that changes. Right? So, and that's the one we the action is that we do, yeah, functioning, and the manifestation is a phala, is a non-delusion. Here, non-delusion basically means sati. Here,
Means
sati, yeah, sati. No, sati. Sati is the mindfulness or mindful awareness, yeah. So here, the sati, it has got continuously being mindful of the object. And here object is wholesome. Yeah? Object is not just this or that object that we normally use to do in a practice, but this is in that state now. We are talking about the wholesome states of the mind, and that in a gross level we can categorize it into being a generous, yeah, being a generous mind, kind heart, and the mind is completely pure and not violated at least of a 5 precepts. Okay, so with that moment, with that practice, with that state of the mind, what is happening is we simply indirectly we are practicing satipatthana, 4 satipatthanas, yeah, aware of the mind, aware of the sensations, aware of the body, and aware of the natural phenomena. Right? So that's the first one, is constantly being or remembering to be mindful of the object constantly without a break. Yeah, in here non-delusional state. And then a second is alertness. Always alertness is there. There is no moment of a forgetful, non-forgetful state of the mind. And then that also the ability to keep or maintain the mind on the wholesome state, wholesome objects. And then the mind is so sharp that it's like a firmly established alertness. So that's with that condition of the mind, what happens is basically there is no ignorance. Yeah, we constantly aware of this arising, remaining, and vanishing state of all the phenomena that arises. Okay, so that's the non-delusional state of the mind. And this is again, when we look at our practice, when we practice, suppose, let's say, sensations arises, and that sensation, not knowing that arisen, and it stays and then changes and vanishes. So not knowing that, what happens is we engage with it. When we engage, and then we simply in a state of not knowing the truth of this sensation, so we become engaged with that cycle of a creation and existence.
Instead of observing, we fall into the cycle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so that's the one. And now the proximate cause. In order to develop the vipassana, we have to have the concentrated mind. And so that's why we cannot separate vipassana and samatha meditation. We have to have the mind that is concentrated. Having the mind concentrated in that moment only, then we will be able to channel it or tune it to see things in a deeper level. So that's why when we are practicing meditation, we are seeing from our experience insight in a very subtlety, in a tiny bit, each individual, and then later on we expanding to the whole universe, that this is also similar to what I have experienced within myself. So that's why concentration is the part of it. Okay, I have quoted here from what the Buddha said about the practice of insight meditation of the Vipassana. Says that if insight meditation be cultivated, what profit does it attain? It says vision is cultivated. If vision is cultivated, what profit does it attain? And ignorance is abandoned. Mind polluted by lust is not set free, nor can vision polluted by the ignorance be cultivated. Indeed, monks, this ceasing of lust is a mental salvation. The ceasing of ignorance is the salvation of wisdom. So, the profit is simply to vision is cultivation. The vision here, it's called a vidya. Vidya Udapadi. In the first discourse, the Dhamma Sutta, the Buddha mentioned Vidya Udapadi. Aloko Udapadi. And after that, the light been arose in his mind, and ignorance completely abandoned. Okay.
Can I just check my understanding of that? Under the heading proximate cause.
Yep.
So the proximate cause is the concentrated mind. Concentrated mind being the cause of the arising of the non-delusional state. Yes.
If you remember, I used to guide through that once mind settled down, concentrated, opening the senses. You remember? So like that. So it's just opening the senses to welcoming, and then applying these, particularly the first one, the characteristics of the Vipassana, seeing things as they truly are, in its true essence. And here true essence is nothing else apart from anicca, dukkha and anatta. And in terms of the benefit, that the profit or the benefit that Buddha just mentioned here, there's two things. Only two things. Vision is cultivated, ignorance is abandoned. That's all. And here, non-delusion, the manifestation, I've already said too. There is no ignorance. Alertness, complete alertness is there. So, there's two things. Sounds simple. This one sounds very easy compared to the samatha meditation. It hasn't got much.
Yes, but if we start explaining this to a novice, we would have to explain all the previous
Yes.
theory.
Yeah. That's why we have to come slowly from the samatha. Yeah. That's why we have to have a concentrated mind. That's why normally when we practice meditation, you're asked to focus, to concentrate. And some people may say it's not needed. No, you're not a skilled one.
Yes.
You are just a novice. Yeah? You just learn to know that. So you have to practice from the basics. And after that, only you can extend it. And once you have completed and once you become skilled, then you don't have to rely on it. But still, you are on that. You're still in that state, but you don't have to focus. You just know. You just realize what's happening. Mind and the matter in that state of the meditation. What is mind? You will be able to understand. And what is the matter? You will be able to understand each moment when you see it. Each moment when you are aware of that moment, then we are in that state, but beyond that state. So we are working with that, the first one, seeing in that tiny bit of how it's like a knitting. Each knitting you put it in and how it knits. And here, rather than knitting, you're unknitting it one by one by one. But you see the connection, how it knitted. How it knitted. So when you see that knitting and you're unknitting it, so that's simply after you have understood that everything is change, arises, remains, and then subject to vanish. Okay?
That's quite a good analogy, that, the knitting, isn't it? But having seen the whole,
Yes.
you start to unravel it. You see each link, each connection between each link.
Yeah.
It breaks down.
Yeah. So, and at the end, nothing. But when you knit it all, it's become a one piece. But in reality, it doesn't exist. And so understanding that non-existence within the existence is the wisdom. So that's why it's called salvation by wisdom. Now benefit, although in this particular passage says about the profit only 2, but when we look at the Satipatthana Sutta, do you know how many the Satipatthana Sutta says? You remember? No book here today.
No.
Right? It says Sattanang Visuddhiya, Soka Paridevanang Dukkha Domanassanang. I forgot chanting now. I haven't chanted for a long time. Basically, the number 1 is purification of beings. Number 1. Number 2, overcoming of a sorrow and lamentation. And number 3, disappearance of a pain and grief. Number 4, the attainment of the true way or noble path. And number 5, the realization of Nibbana. So 5 benefits. first, purification of beings, overcoming of, and then second, overcoming of sorrow, lamentation. Third, disappearance of a pain, grief, and the fourth, attainment of a path, and the last one is a fruition, the realization of nibbana. I remember there was one moment I was planning to go through these 5 benefits one by one in our Wednesday evening sessions, and I touched 2 sessions, and after that, because new members came, and then I cannot go further onto this continuity in that, so then I just stopped it again, whatever comes.
Mm-hmm.
Then again I just left it like that way. Okay, so just focusing on that 5 benefits, we can extend so much, so much, because let's say the purification of beings. In that purification of beings, I think we have touched the 7 Visuddhis, if you remember. 7 purifications.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember, and that also comes under that too. And then, but anyway, so the sorrow and lamentation, pain, grief, these are in our day-to-day life experiences. It's inevitable that we face it. It's more of a practical form of a suffering that we suffer. And then, having understood that, so before we understood the sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief in our life, we have to purify ourselves, you see. Without purification, we cannot see these things in its true nature. Otherwise, what we see is simply our attachment to things, attachment to the people, and that's how I am suffer. There is no concept of generosity. There is no concept of being kind, compassionate, like that. But the very moment when you purify, and here purification of being doesn't mean a physical purification, but this is talking about the mental purification. So mental purification, then we have to go through. There's 7 purifications, and that starts from the purification of morality, like that. So you have to go back to the Visuddhi one. I don't know when we studied that Visuddhi one. Okay, and then when we look at these 5 benefits, so we have to go through these 7 Visuddhis or 7 purifications, and then after that, going through the 7 purifications, what will happen is that we will gradually develop the understanding of this mind matter, and developing the understanding of a cause and effects, and developing understanding of how it arises and ceases. How it develops, how it arises, what condition makes it to arise, and then what condition makes it to vanishes. Okay, like that.
The whole process.
Whole process. When we know that process, then gradually we will be seeing the path. We will be seeing the path, and it has got, it's called jnanas, knowledge. There are 16 knowledge in that process. Okay, or sometimes it's called panya. Okay, now anyway, do not go that way. Let's come back. Okay, so after the Buddha talked about the 5 benefits, then Buddha talked about the ways to practice. And then that ways to practice, as Buddha taught on the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Yeah, that's in that moment how the Satipatthana comes now. 4 foundations of mindfulness. And now in a 4 foundation of mindfulness, normally there will be an object, right? Object, and we will be working like this. Yeah? So let's say this is a feeling, and this is the body, this is the mind, and this is a phenomenon. Okay? Like this. In this moment, these are connected. To understand this phenomena, the state of the mind, whether it is kusala or wholesome or unwholesome. Okay? This is sometimes called thinking as well, okay? Thinking. So that's why in a practice, always pointed towards ourselves. Yeah? Always body and then the mind. Always. And with that, we will be pointing to the wholesome or unwholesome state of the mind. And that moment of the wholesome and unwholesome state of the mind, that again comes under the 7 Visuddhis. If we have purified, then the unwholesome state will not be there. Will be a state of the wholesomeness. And with that, what will happen is we will be able to see this body in its true nature. Yeah? That's why understanding the anicca, dukkha, anatta is not about material things that we are seeing here, outside world, but towards ourselves. Now, so far good? Understand? Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now this anicca, dukkha, anatta is anicca, dukkha and anatta is categorized like this. Yeah? It's like a river. Constantly flowing. Yeah? Constantly flowing. That's why there is a saying, you cannot jump twice in the same river. Yeah? I think this is a Descartes' philosophy. You cannot jump in the same river twice. Yeah? Anything? I think I will stop here because it seems like too many things going on. Okay?
And these are arising from our previous states of mind.
Which one?
Anicca, dukkha and anatta.
No. We're not talking about the previous mind. We are talking about the present mind.
Okay.
Whatever happens in this moment. That's why in this present moment, whatever we are observing, whatever we are seeing, or whatever we are experiencing are subject to change.
Okay.
Yeah? So that's why in the practice, in order to practice the Vipassana, in a state of the mind, when our mind becomes very stable with the help of the concentration, those moments, the subconsciously saved memories will come. Memories will just pops in. Pops. Those moments also individual state.
And becomes an object.
Yes, becomes an object. And that object is always in this state.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that state. So when it comes, it's not the past now.
No,
it's a present.
Yeah, I meant the object arises from the past, from subconscious.
Subconscious that comes, yeah. And then that's why if you're aware of that, okay, before we seeing this anicca dukkha anatta, what happens in that moment, in 3 stages there. 1, you're seeing you as a person, as an observer, seeing an object. I mentioned last night about it. 2 things, mind and the matter. And when this mind and the matter, when we are looking at it so closely, then we see that both interrelated. In that interrelationship, the past memories arise. Past memories arise. And that's simply because something has steered it. And that's how the past memory arises. And this steering object is the object in this present moment as well. And that is steered. And that very moment, if our mind is not alert, then it will just bring this past memory. And then that very moment we just put our perception, we put all identities. But if our mind is alert and is sharp enough, let's say we cannot, we were not able to notice at that moment when it steered. At least when the past memory came and just about to proliferate or manifests to something, it's called bhava, kamma bhava, start to work. We see that moment. And we stop there.
Somebody compared it like sitting on the bank of the river and watching the objects flowing in the river, and if we lose our concentration we may jump into the river and grasp that object.
So that's the second one. Seeing both interrelated, both become a cause and effects here, to arise. And that moment when it arose and it stays, so we're watching it when it stays, and then it vanishes. So that moment we're talking about here, it's called characteristics. And we see that in that moment so clearly, how it arises. Not just the object now here, even our mind that conditioned to arrive, and then that vanished. So like that. So that's why it doesn't matter what it is. It is past memories or subconsciously saved memories. It's called alaya vinyana. Subconsciously saved memories. Whenever it pops in, that is the present moment here. Although it was from, let's say, past, but here happened here now.
It's here now.
Becomes present.
Like if I take my example of recent fear of myself disappearing or being fragmented, that fear was the object, the phenomenon. So it was fear.
Okay. So like that. And commentaries gave why this is anicca, why we cannot see anicca. So we will go next time. And I haven't touched the object of meditation, Vipassana meditation yet. We just went on into the wilderness of this subject. Okay. I've written here already. Yes, the sub-objects of Vipassana. And then there are four categories. Sorry, not categories. It's called characteristics of not seeing anicca, not seeing suffering, and not seeing anatta. It's like something is covering you.
The object comes very close.
Not object, because of this natural phenomena that's happening, and then our perspective or perception is so closed off, and we cannot see that, and then that's why it's become a delusional. So we become deluded.
The energy of grasping.
That's why when I read it, there's a lustful state of the mind.
Wanting.
Yeah, like that.
Become blind.
Yes, become a blind. And that's why when we practice Vipassana meditation, it's just the light, the darkness of delusion being gone. Okay. Shall we stop here today? Yeah. The main focus today would be these four things: characteristics, function, manifestation, and proximity culture. And if we can remember these four functions or principles of this Vipassana, then we can go through all without any problem. And we can understand. We have to have a concentrated mind. We have to have a alertful mind. And with that, we will see things the way it is. The way it is. I think we'll go another two sessions on this. Okay.
You've written down under characteristic lakkhana, function, kissa,
Kitcha,
manifestation, phala,
phala.
and proximate cause is the
Concentration, samadhi. Concentration, simple.
Yes, I understand, but
The Pali word, you mean?
is there a Pali word for that?
Yeah. I forgot to note it.
Okay. It's okay. It's just that
Consistency.
where there's a Pali word, sometimes I Google it to see a little bit more information. Because on that one it probably doesn't matter.
I didn't make any note of it.
Whatever it is, if I googled it, it would probably give me 10 pages on samadhi.
It's, I think, appana something.
It's okay.
Anything you want to ask on this topic? Anything you think, or maybe just to go back and contemplate on that for a while. Upatthana. Okay, now I understand. Upatthana. Yeah? Thana.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's getting better, but still, when I slip into ignorance, it's so deep.
But remember, always think of the paticca samuppada, dependent origination. Always keep in mind. Dependent origination.
Yeah.
Always keep in mind. It's always in that circle. Always in that circle.
That's why I understand why my main practice, according to the types of what's the word? Temperament is meditation on death. My main grasping is to life itself, and anything that frightens my self-concept is the most difficult attachment for me.
It's okay.
Yes.
We're not enlightened yet.
No.
So we have to have some form of maybe some degree of this attachment to live, to feel comfort. And again, when we do not know this detachment concept, it also frightens of attainment of nibbana. Why I am striving so hard to just to be empty, nothingness. What is the purpose of that? Sort of that fear arise. It's like a pessimistic view arise.
I was going to say the danger is one starts to become miserable and think that there's nothing in life to enjoy.
Yeah, but then the misery becomes an object of concentration.
Once we know.
Yes.
Yeah. Once we have realized the teachings, then things become normal. But when we do not know, and straight away you say, practice of meditation is to attain nibbana. Nibbana means nothingness. Then they simply say, why I am doing it for nothing? What's the point of it?
Yeah.
So there is a danger. That's why I think I mentioned a couple of times as well that I always avoid talking about the nibbana. I always avoid about the law of karma. Also, the concept of emptiness and concept of a life after death. These are some of the concepts I try to avoid because I do not know. But I can talk to you because you've been learning, you've been studying on that, so I can express whatever I understood. And again, my understanding may not be the right one, because I'm giving you from my perspective.
I was still recording.
Yeah. So
I wanted to share with you some of my investigation on these things. But it's a long story. So it started when I started learning about Jesus. So I wrote a dissertation on Jesus, and I read a lot of literature on that. And I had a question, so if Jesus was a teacher, then he has to have his teachers. So I investigated that, and every time I went and passed, so I investigated from what I read where Jesus obtained his knowledge, and I went back and I went back and I went back. And recently, when we started coming to your classes, life gives me challenges again and again. I come across with the teachings that were before the Buddha, Brahmans and Vedas, and I got access to these teachings, and so I read a little bit on how karma forms and things. So, and I also read that the Buddha himself transformed, edited the teachings that there were before him, and added teachings on Vipassana. But the teachings on law of karma, basically, he edited it, and they still exist.
So what do you think between a law of karma in Buddhism and law of karma in Hinduism or Brahmanism? Let's say Brahmanism, because Hinduism came later. What is it called? Evolution. One.
Yes. So there is a concept of wholesome living in law of karma, and fulfilling our duties, obtaining knowledge, and purification. But they mainly focus on doing all these things to get a better rebirth. They are not talking about Nibbana.
Okay.
So I understood that people who practice Hinduism and Vedic traditions, they do these things mainly to get better rebirth.
Okay. Who defines the better rebirth?
They have a degree of heavenly existence.
A hierarchy.
Yes.
Who defines?
Who? Alright, they have gods. They have Vishnu, Krishna.
Yeah. So?
And according to the Buddhist teachings, those existences are still in samsaric world.
Yeah.
So they are not talking about exiting samsara.
That's why sometimes I avoid using a word karma. And I feel do not fit in. Whenever we talk about the karma as something we're talking, it's related to, let's say, in Brahmanical concept, karma is something determined. It's a determination, already determined by someone. It's called an Atman. And then you are doing it because you are told to do. You already you already have a chip.
Programmed.
Yeah, you're programmed in your head that this life you're going to do this. You have no free will.
Well, they say that if the best way to attain, they don't call it liberation.
It's called joining with the Atman.
Yes.
Unification with the
Yes.
greater soul. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's called.
Mhm.
That is the joining with the bigger soul, basically.
Yes. It's like there is substance there,
Yeah.
and in each individual there is a tiny piece of that substance that there is a string attached to that.
Yeah. And you, after you are working hard, you will be going to uniting with this greater soul. Yeah. And this is again not your choice, you see. It's already programmed by Atman, greater soul. It's just like giving you a task. Okay, you go and do your task, and if you can do,
that's the
it's like a matrix.
final goal for them.
Yeah.
To get back home.
Yeah. Alright. So that's why there is no free will. Whereas in the Buddhist term, what I understood is not the karma is important. Your will to change is important. In Hinduism or in Brahmanical concept, you have no will to change it.
Because they see that final destination as desirable.
Yeah. Okay. Whereas here, is talking about the freedom to change. That's why you have to change now. Yeah. And it always begins from now in Buddhism. Yeah. So that's why the concept of the karma is very different in Brahmanical or Hinduism and Buddhism. Completely opposite things. Although we use the same kind of a word and concept, which broadly is seeing it kind of the same thing, but no, completely different.
Final goal is different.
And not only final goal, the working process also completely different. So that's why Buddhism is another form, another way of calling it as Vidyavada. So that means vidya means effort to
Effort, determination.
You have rights. You interesting. How can I translate that?
Free will.
You have a free will.
Choice.
You can change. And you can end it by yourself. Whereas in Hinduism you cannot.
You only go home.
You only go home again. Going home also determined by the Atman. So it's like you become a puppet. You become a puppet like that.
Yeah, they assume that everybody wants to go home.
That's the superficial understanding.
Yes.
Superficial understanding. But there is Atman who is taking control. Taking control of your. It's like already programmed. You're just typing. Okay, today you go here. Okay, you go there. Like that. So everything is predetermined by the Atman. And whoever breaks that system then go to hell. But if you are doing in accordance with what the principles laid down to you to do, then you will go up.
So basically the teachers before the Buddha, they didn't have the concept of Vipassana.
No.
It was only concentration.
Concentration. Yeah. Right? And this concentration again to achieve the higher
standards.
state. Higher state of them, the existences. And that's why Buddha said that Brahma will even this is my understanding again from reading the scriptures and then the philosophies little bit, that in Hinduism those days ascetics were practicing so high up to the 8 jhanas, and with that 8 jhanas they were able to attain the Brahma world, and that's why they were able to explain up to Brahma world so much. And then they said in Hinduism it says that the Brahma world is the highest, and whoever attains the jhanas, that's how you purify your mind, then that's again you're following the Atman, and then you will attain the Brahma world. And simply in a Brahma world, as eons of lifespan you have, and that's the state, the Hinduism saying. But the Buddha went beyond that, went beyond that. That is also in the circle of the samsara. There is a beyond it, like that. So that's why there are some suttas talking with the beings in the Brahma world. And again, within the Brahma world, Buddha is talking so many other, in Brahma world is a country with so many cities and villages, and it's up to you where you are. Like that. Okay.
You call me a scientist.
It's interesting. I when my awareness was very little, I didn't understand all of this, but since we started studying, I recalled my previous research, because I have this hunger for knowledge, understand why how it links together. So far I was able to unlink it back.
Like
with your help, with the teaching's help, I can see the bigger picture now.
So that's why when we pay respect to the Buddha, we call Samma Sambuddha, self-awakened one. So when we look at that self-awakened one, we can see that in the life of the Buddha, he was going with the previous teachers, practicing with the previous teachers, and after he practiced so well, he understood that that wasn't the path to liberate, so he gave up. After he given up all, he went on by himself, practiced by himself, investigated by himself, and then that's how he attained the Buddhahood. So that's why he is known as the Buddha without having any teachers. That doesn't mean he didn't have, but he had, but
he found for himself.
He found for himself later on. That's why it's called, he was known as the Samma Sambuddha. That's why when we read, I think I have recalled this story so many times as well, that when after he became enlightened, he was on the way to teach the 5 ascetics. On the way he met one ascetic, and then he asked him, "Who are you?" Do you remember the story? And then whom do you ordain? Who was your teacher? And sort of these were the questions. And Buddha said, I didn't ordain for anyone. I don't have any teacher. I am this awakened one. And he didn't accept.
But am I right at the time they were expected the awakened one to come?
Not respected.
Expected.
Expected, not expected. Not expected to come. They were practicing to be. They were. Everyone knew about it, and everyone striving to be the Buddha.
How do they know? How did they know that there is a state of awakened mind?
That was ongoing teachings, and they were just practicing to be enlightened, but the way was lost, and nobody was able to find the way, and everybody knew there is a way, but unable to find that way.
So that leads to another question.
Mm.
If the path was lost, that means it existed before.
Certainly, yes. That's why there are many Buddhas
Many
in the
Buddhas.
past.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and then that's why Buddha is saying that every one of us has got this Buddha nature.
Okay.
Yeah, and only thing is we have to find that path. And the very moment when we find the path, then we are enlightened. So that's why when we read the suttas, there are plenty of suttas. After Buddha explained the teachings, the listener says, "Open the cupboard." Yeah. Something that covered, Buddha just uncovered it. Like that.
Yeah. This is why there will be another Buddha.
They will constantly with hundreds of the Buddha. That's why Buddha used the word called appaka valuka, something valuka ganga. So it means uncountable Buddhas been born in the past, like the sands in the Ganga river. Can you count the sand in the Ganga river? You cannot.
No.
So that same Buddha was talking that countless of the Buddhas in the past have been born, and then countless will be born in the future. Yeah.
But that, in Hindu they say life goes like this in infinite. And is the concept of the Buddhas being born in the past, in the present, and in the future?
Now you have.
So that means there is no end to anything. Even
That was not the same the Buddha. It's
No.
not the same Buddha is coming back.
not the same.
Yeah. If the same Buddha is coming back, it's like a reincarnation, then endless. But this is not the same person.
Oh, I see. It's in this.
You and me. So you become the Buddha, you're finished.
Okay, it's only in this world. Yeah.
Right? And then me become the Buddha, my life is gone, and then somebody like a David will become the Buddha, like that.
I understand. It's only in this samsaric world. The Buddha comes and then he goes to Nibbana
Yes.
and never comes back. And
There is, again, it's not coming back. Yeah. It's,
not being born.
that's why the difficult question.
Yes, yes.
That's why it's, the concept of the Nibbana is a dissolution. There is nothing that conditioned to arise. So it's a state of unconditioned. So that's why there is nothing that conditioned it to arise. So it's a state.
This is why it is said you can achieve Nibbana in a lifetime.
In lifetime, yes.
And having achieved that, when you die, you die.
Yeah. It's not after you die you achieve.
No.
Yeah. If it's after death you are going to achieve, then Buddha cannot be enlightened at the 35 and lived for 45 years. See, despite you have attained the enlightenment, you still can live. But during this time, you are not making any conditions. And nothing can make it. That's the state. So, it's not an easy subject. A very difficult one. And even when we read this one, there is it's called sunyata vimokha. So liberation by nothingness. Okay, liberation by nothingness. How do we understand?
We will understand when we are there.
like that.
Not
Okay.
today.
So that's why I always try not to speak that topic because it's very
I-
difficult to comprehend.
I think the practical concept of dependent origination,
Yeah.
purification, non-attachment, and not being conditioned by unwholesome, if we make it simple, not being conditioned by unwholesome influences and being conditioned only by wholesome influences. In a practical sense, that becomes understandable. It's that next step.
We can't understand it in this body.
No, it's, it becomes, well, I can't remember where it was said, but what was the phrase now? It's beyond this. It's beyond our understanding, and the more we seek to understand it,
You're more confused.
the more difficult it becomes to understand.
Yeah.
It can only be understood by experiencing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Buddha called in a simple term the state of Nibbana is maybe other way around, but let's say he mentioned unconditioned, unborn, uncreated, unconditioned. Okay, like that.
Not arising, not being.
No. So that's why it's not the state that doesn't exist, but also doesn't exist. Something it's like a paradox. It is there, but not there.
Because as soon as you speak of something created, it's conditioned.
Yes, like that. Okay. Right, so we will stop here then.
I'm delighted to know I'm not the only scientist in the family.
And that's why I talk about the atoms all the time, because atom has got the three elements to make the one atom. The very moment when you take the one element of the atom, then that doesn't exist, the atom. That same thing with the Nibbana. Nibbana, we have three unwholesome states, greed, hatred and delusion. So very moment when we take these three away, then the state is there. And now, is there? Yes. Is it? No. That concept, okay?
Yes.
Alright, okay, so let's do the loving kindness meditation. So bring your mind to the room and to your body. And relax. Spend a few moments on tonight's session. loving kindness meditation. So make yourself comfortable, relax. Connected, feeling sensations. And allowing yourself to be happy, at peace, free from suffering. I am well, I am happy, I am at peace. And similarly, sharing loving kindness and compassion to the rest of other beings, whatever beings there are, visible and invisible beings, in this room, in this city, on earth, in the universe. May they be well, may they be happy, may they be at peace. So bring your attention to the body, feel the sensations, and as you hear the gong coming out from meditation, and reflect for a few moments. Let's be respected. Arahang Sama Sambuddho Bhagavan Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Sawakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Savatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sangham Namami. Okay.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Satu. Okay.
You'll need a rest after that.
Tomorrow morning I'm going.
What time?